Welcome to the show. A very, very good morning to you. You're tuned into the sunrise and you're with me, Sarah. And I'm very, very excited to be here on this beautiful Thursday morning. It's like every time I'm here every day, I just keep thinking to myself how fast the days go by, right? Because it almost feels like Monday was yesterday and it's already Thursday. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, it's so crazy how soon time passes, right? Now, I know I'm not the only one that has been feeling that way. I know you have as well because I think especially because we have been stuck at home because of lockdown and whatnot, we have we just feel time passing by much faster than what we would normally feel if we were at work or if our lives function normally, right? And it's crazy because I'm thinking to myself, it's crazy how it's already July, and it almost feels like the beginning of July was last week, because right now it actually feels like July. I mean, right now it's the middle of July, right? So it feels like July, like the beginning of July was in fact last week. And I'm thinking to myself, it's really crazy how soon time has passed, right? And it's really, really crazy how soon this year is going by. And definitely when we started this year, we didn't expect it to go by so fast, right? But it is what it is. That's where we are right now. And in terms of trending memes these days, it is what it is, right? But you're tuned into the sunrise with me, Sarah, and I'm very, very excited to be here because we're talking about a lot of important and even interesting conversation that is relevant to the United Kingdom, but also to the rest of the world as well. And that is why, if you really like some of the content that we talk about, if you really like some of the things we talk about, make sure you text me on 078 to share your thoughts and your ideas with me. And also make sure to go follow us on our socials, which is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And that way you can make sure you are informed, that you are in touch with us as well, because you're going to be aware of everything we talk about. You're going to have an idea of everything that we are talking about, and not just on the sunrise, but on all of the other shows as well. So make sure you stay tuned. But let's actually get into this whole conversation that we're going to be having. And also, I want to very quickly remind you that before we get into that conversation, you can actually go download an app which is available on both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store, and that way you can make sure you are a part of our show, and you can always listen into the conversation from anywhere in the world at any time of the day. So make sure you do that. Now, let's get into today's conversation, which is basically about whether we should end mask wearing. Now, I know this is a huge debate that has been happening right here in the United Kingdom, because a lot of people have a lot of different ideas about whether we should continue wearing masks or whether we should just let it be and not wear masks at all, right? Now, with lockdown being lifted on the 19th of July, and there is going to be a lot of changes, and Boris Johnson actually announced all of that on Monday. Now we will be discussing about all of that in detail, but the main topic right now is whether you believe whether we should continue wearing masks or not. And I know we're not necessarily supposed to wear it unless we're in crowded places and whatnot, and I will be getting into the details of that. But I really want to know your opinion, what you think we should do, right? Now, I know we have specific rules and whatnot, but let's also talk about how sometimes when it comes to these opinions, or when it comes to your thoughts, that especially when it comes to mask wearing, right now, because of how lockdown restrictions are going to be lifted and whatnot, we know that then it becomes a personal choice, right? A choice of whether you want to wear the mask or not. So we will talk about how people will react if you choose to wear masks. How there has been a lot of negativity, how there's been a lot of resistance from people in recent times because of mask wearing and whatnot. And we'll talk about all of that, so make sure you stay tuned to Relax Radio, and make sure you text me on 078 because I want to hear your thoughts, I want to hear your opinions, and I want to hear everything that you have to say about this topic. Okay, because I know this is a controversial one, and it's always fun to do something controversial once in a while, right? You know what I mean? So let's get into it then. Now, we all know that lockdown is in fact coming to an end, and restrictions are going to be lifted on the 19th of July. And I don't know whether to feel excited or sad about it, because while I'm excited to go out and hang out with my friends, I'm also going to be not so very excited about, having to go back to normal, because it was so much more fun to actually work from home and spend all my time working on the bed instead of actually dressing up and going to office and all that, struggle that was stressful, because you have to wake up so early to do all of that. So I don't know how to feel about this, and I don't know how you feel about this, so let me know. But we know that lockdown is coming to an end, and when because we know rather that lockdown is coming to an end, there's this obvious question of whether we should continue wearing masks or not. Again, there is a lot of debate as well, because it is a very debatable topic. I mean, come on, it's a very debatable conversation. Now, about half of people in Britain, or a little bit less than half actually, believe that you shouldn't wear masks because we don't have to, and everyone's almost everyone is vaccinated rather. And there's also another part of Britain that believes, look, you know what, we still need to keep wearing masks because we don't know for sure if the pandemic is ended. And the truth of the matter is, in my opinion, the pandemic has not really ended, right? We haven't had rather scientific reports or scientists tell us, look, COVID-19 doesn't exist anymore. We've completely gotten rid of it. We don't have we don't have any evidence, or we don't have anything like that. So in my opinion, I think that even though these mask wearing regulations are going to be eased, in my opinion, I think that maybe we should still continue wearing masks just to make sure that we're safe, just to make sure that our families are safe, because we have absolutely no idea whether that could be another COVID outbreak, right? So we will be talking about all of that right now. So like I said, it's a very debatable one. It's a very debatable conversation, this whole notion of mask wearing, whether we should wear it or whether we should not wear it. Now, if we now given the fact that certain rules and regulations have been announced, what instances do we actually wear masks in, and in what instances do we avoid wearing masks? So there's a lot of questions and all as well. Now make sure you stay tuned, because I will be getting into all of that as well. Now, Boris Johnson actually announced on Monday that there would be no longer a legal requirement for people to wear masks, right? And the Prime Minister, in fact, urged people to exercise personal responsibility in continuing to wear them in crowded and enclosed spaces. So, look, there is no longer a legal requirement for you to wear masks, but if you're in a crowded place, if you're using public transport, then for the safety of everyone else, you should think about it. You do have a certain level of responsibility towards society, towards people, and wear your mask if you are heading out in public transport. Now, this actually has been met with a lot of resistance, because in London, Mayor Sadiq Khan actually wanted to make it compulsory for people to wear masks in any transport that was a part of the Transport for London system. Okay, and look, I understand his concerns. I understand where he's coming from, because look, we've already seen how bad COVID is. We've seen how fast it infects people and how fast it affects people. So given all of that, is it really safe? Is it actually a very smart thing to be doing right now, to ask people to remove their mask and not make it a legal requirement as of right now? Is it really necessary? Because in my opinion, I think it wouldn't hurt people to keep wearing their masks for a little bit longer, right? But again, that's my opinion. And if you have opinions, make sure you text me on 07852473473, because Relax Radio is all about listening to your opinion. It's all about hearing your opinion. So make sure you text me on that number, or you even call me so I can hear your opinion about wearing masks and whether you think you should wear it or not, right? So like I said, the Prime Minister actually urged people to be responsible, to take the necessary steps and precautions. Now, virtually all legal restrictions will actually be will be lifted. However, some guidance will remain. Now, for example, the legal requirement to wear face coverings in some enclosed public places will be removed, but Mr. Javid actually said that they were still expected and recommended in crowded indoor areas. Now, you can, according to the new regulations, you can virtually go to any public place without your masks. However, if you are in a crowded indoor area, you are expected and recommended to wear your masks. Okay, and I know this is where people are going to be like, oh, you know what, we don't have to wear our masks anymore, it's a personal choice, this is a democracy, you can't force us to wear masks, and all of that. But in my opinion, I think people like that are in fact being very selfish. Look, it definitely doesn't hurt you so much to wear a mask, okay? Because doctors wear masks every day, especially when they're doing surgery, especially when they're treating patients and whatnot. And in fact, because of the pandemic, they've had to wear masks longer than most of us, right? Because at least when we get back home, we remove our masks and whatnot. Whereas for doctors who are always stuck in the hospital because of the huge influx of COVID-19 cases, they've pretty much had absolutely no break, and they've had to wear the mask basically 24 hours a day. So why are we complaining? We shouldn't be complaining about this, because look, we know that things are getting back to normal, but we shouldn't jump that gun too soon, right? Which is what I'm trying to say. So like I said, people, all these legal requirements will be lifted, but people are still expected and recommended to wear masks in crowded indoor areas. Now, nightclubs will also be allowed to reopen for the first time since March 2020, which is, last year. It's crazy. Like I said, it's crazy how almost a year has gone by with COVID-19, right? Almost a year and a half. So nightclubs are in fact being allowed to open since and this is the first time it's opening since March 2020, and the capacity limits will in fact be removed for all venues and events. And there will also actually no longer be any limits on how many people can meet, and the 1 meter plus distancing rule will also be removed. But obviously, nightclubs and other venues with large crowds will in fact be encouraged to use COVID status certification and so-called domestic vaccine passports, which as a matter of social responsibility, and that's what the Prime Minister said as well. Okay, now look, I look, all these restrictions are going to be removed. People are going to, they're going to be able to get back to how life normally was, right? And I understand that quite a lot of people have been vaccinated here in the United Kingdom, but we also need to understand that not everyone has been vaccinated, right? There are still risk groups out there, and just because you're vaccinated, it doesn't mean that you're completely immune to the disease, right? If anything, you just have an extra bit of protection, and I don't understand why everyone is so quick to throw away their masks, because personally, I would still continue wearing my mask regardless of where I am, because I am a bit skeptical about removing my mask. Okay, and I also think in terms of the future, in terms of all the pollution out there, in terms of you getting sick, even if it's something as simple as the common cold or whatnot, it's good for us if we wear the mask. And it's not just good for us, but it's good for everyone else as well, because if we're sick, we're potentially stopping the spread of our sickness to another person. Now, that's just my opinion on it, right? But right now we're going to head into a small break, because I have a lot more left to talk to you about this. So make sure you stay tuned, and also make sure to, talk to me and tell me about what you have to say or what you feel. Okay, so make sure you do that.
Again, but now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, "You've had one to forget," God, there'd be an inquest. Me, why did you reject my son? Well, I haven't rejected your son.
I want to talk about, how the generation gap, how much it's changed, especially when you check the youth nowadays in comparison, to people back in the day.
I'd say when I was younger, it was more disciplined. Not now.
In comparison to now.
Not at all. Not now. The way things are nowadays, the younger generation, you seem that they can't accept the word no, if that makes sense. They can't
accept rejection, essentially, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, they can't accept the word no. So if you how did I do? Or you didn't do very well, and they get upset. And when I was a youngster, my father used to say to me, because I used to be sport mad when I was very young. Well, I still am sport mad, but like participating in different sports. And if I had a bad game, for example, he might say to me, "You had one to forget." That's it.
Your dad sounds like a smart guy. I mean, yeah, that's the real fact of the matter, yeah.
He'd say to me, "You had one to forget. Get over it." And that was it. So I dust myself down and do it again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, "You've had one to forget," God, there'd be an inquest. An inquest. Me, why did you reject my son? Well, I haven't rejected your son. Or daughter. I've just told them that they need to buck their ideas up.
That's the truth right there. I mean, if you think about it, if you check the generations, like right now in the US as well, I've seen a lot of these things as well. In the UK, you get medals for participation. But what's the point?
What's
What
the
are you
point?
trying to? Yeah, what's the point? Either you win or you lose. People are so afraid to put that whole notion of lose. When it comes to right now, the generation gap is just crazy. How much a lot has changed. Social media has taken control of our lives, and we don't even realize it anymore. We're crippled because of it.
That's absolutely right, Nick. Because as you said, nowadays it seems that you get rewarded for failure. For the life of me, Nick, I can't get my head around that. Perhaps I'm just getting old and morbid. I don't know. I just can't get my head around how you could be rewarded for failure.
Welcome back to the show. It's your girl Sarah right here on the Sunrise. Now, I'm very, very excited to be here because we're talking about a lot of important things, right? We're having a very, very important conversation because we're talking about whether we should end mask wearing, whether we actually have a choice. And if we do make the choice to continue wearing our masks, then, what kind of outlook would it have on society, and what kind of reaction that we would have from the public. Now that's what we're talking about. You're tuned into Relax Radio with me, Sarah, and you're listening to the Sunrise. Now I'm very excited to be here because we're having a very important and interesting conversation, so make sure you stay tuned, okay? And before we head back into this conversation, I want to very quickly remind you that you can, in fact, be a part of the show. All you need to do is just text me on 078 and get in touch with me. So make sure you share your thoughts, your opinions, your experiences with me, because that's what we do right here on Relax Radio. I want to hear what you're thinking. I want to know what you're thinking. So make sure you text me. And also, don't forget to go follow us on our socials, which is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And that way you can actually make sure that you're a part of this show and that you contribute to the show as much as you can, but also that the fact that you're updated and informed about everything that happens right here in the United Kingdom, but also all around the world as well. And don't forget to download our app, which is available on both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. And that way you can stay tuned and make sure you listen into the conversation at any time of the day from anywhere in the world. Okay, so make sure you do that. But right now, let's actually get back into the conversation that we were having about wearing masks, whether we should really wear masks and why it's so important for us to wear masks and whatnot, right? Now, unlike Boris Johnson, who is removing the legal requirement rather of wearing masks and whatnot, Sadiq Khan, in fact, has different thoughts and ideas. So let's actually talk about his thoughts and ideas and why he thinks this way and why he feels the need to implement some of these policies. Right now, Sadiq Khan has in fact challenged official government policy by ordering compulsory mask wearing on London's buses, tubes, and trams. Okay, and the reason he is doing this is, I will get into that, but you need to understand that the reason he's doing this is actually to make sure that everyone's safe, to make sure that everyone is protected, and that we don't have to go through another COVID outbreak one more time. And eventually we know what it means, right? A COVID outbreak means another lockdown, and another lockdown means we have to spend so much of time at home, and we have to go back to the exact same way we were a year ago. And that's if we don't take the necessary precautions. So it's important for us to keep taking the necessary precautions. It's important for us to make sure that we don't put ourselves at risk, we don't put our families at risk either. So like I said, Sadiq Khan has in fact challenged official government policy by ordering compulsory mask wearing on London's buses, tubes, and trams. And the mayor has also decided to make face coverings a condition of carriage on all transport for London services, including the Overground and the Docklands Light Railway. Okay, and Transport for London is also looking at ways to make taxi and minicab drivers and passengers obey the mask order. And I think this is very important because while we're trying to move forward, we still need to remind ourselves, we need to tell ourselves that COVID 19 still exists, right? just because lockdown is being lifted, just because where things are slowly getting back to normal, that doesn't mean that we completely abandon all those safety precautions that we took the past few months and pretend like the virus doesn't exist and just go out and have fun. Look, it's all fine. You can go out and have fun, and no one's stopping you from doing that. But it's important for you to keep in mind that while you're going out and having fun, you might put someone else at risk. So make sure you still wear you still stick to some of those safety precautions. You still wear your mask, you socially distance. Even though it's not required of you, it's good to always practice habits like social distancing, okay? Because this means that people don't have to get too close to you. And if you're someone who really is like, I'm very particular about my personal space. I hate it if people get too close to me, and I absolutely hate it. Like, it makes me so mad, like it makes me so angry, and it's not even something I can shout at, right? But obviously COVID actually helped me, because it helped me like have all that personal space I wanted without people coming really close, and you feeling crowded and whatnot. So that really helped me, and in a way I think COVID-19 was actually good for people like me. So if you are a person like me, and you don't even have to be a person like me, but you can still continue to wear the mask, you can still continue to make sure that you take the necessary precautions and whatnot, right? Now, like I said, the Transport for London is in fact looking at ways to make sure that taxi and even minicab drivers and passengers obey the mask order. And I think that's important, because this in London, they're trying to make sure that everyone is safe. They're trying to prevent that risk. They're trying to prevent that risk from, there's a lot of health risks right now, right? Even though things are getting back to normal, where there is a lot of health risks. And because they're taking these necessary precautions, it might help to reduce that risk that is currently prevalent within the United Kingdom. Now, Khan also said that 4,000 fixed penalty notices have in fact been issued over the last 11 months, okay? And this is obviously because of the way people were traveling in transport, and they weren't obeying the necessary, mask regulations and whatnot that were in fact made compulsory, right? So when he was asked if the other regional leaders may in fact follow London's lead, he added, and he said that he's been in contact with providers and leaders across the country, and it is for each area, each transport provider rather, to decide what they want to do. And again, it is a whole question of what you want to do in your vicinity. If those transport providers want people to wear masks, then they can ask people to wear masks. They can get in touch with those mayors, they can get in touch with the leaders, and find come up with a system, come up with a way to solve that problem, and make sure that everyone is safe, right? But again, at the end of the day, it is a personal decision. It is a decision that they themselves make, right? Just because London is doing it, that doesn't mean that the rest of the country might want to do it. So if London wants to do it, and a lot of people support that idea as well, then you know what, they can do it. And he said that he's also very clear that it's very clear from the evidence that he's gotten from Sage and the WHO, that you wearing a face mask is probably the most unselfish thing that you can do. Now, this is what I was saying earlier as well. Wearing a face mask, wearing a face covering is in fact the most unselfish thing you can do. And hey, like, look at this, okay? If you were asked to do something else for someone else, you would there would be higher chances of you doing it, because you're doing it for someone else. You are being selfless. And look, as human beings, we like to be helpless. I don't know about most of the people out there, but for me and for a lot of people I know, we like to be helpless, right? Not helpless, but rather selfless, right? We want to be people who do good, who care about other people, who care about other people's safety, who always make sure that the other person is safe and protected, right? We are people like that. So if you want to be selfless, well, the most selfless thing you can do, or if you want to be someone who cares about everyone else, the most selfless thing that you can do is actually to wear your mask, okay? And I'll tell you why. Because in Japan, I want to talk about Japan because Japan has been wearing masks for much longer than we have. And I'm saying before even the pandemic happened, before even COVID came along, Japanese people actually used to wear masks. And the reason they did this was because whenever they had flu season, whenever there was a suspected flu season, they would essentially wear masks if they got sick. And this was to make sure that they wouldn't spread the disease to other people. So that is in fact a very selfless thing to do, because even though you're sick, you're thinking of someone else and you're making sure that you don't spread the disease to other people when you're heading out, when you're going out to buy groceries, when you're going out to the shop or whatever. And some time back, we also had a very important conversation on flu, on what are the symptoms of flu and what exactly to do if you do get the flu. So keeping all of that in mind, the most selfless thing you can do if you get the flu, regardless of whether it's COVID or just the flu, the most selfless thing you can do is in fact to wear a mask, because not only are you protecting yourself, but more importantly, you're protecting other people. So in Japan, that's how it works, and this happened way before the pandemic. Okay. And what we need to keep in mind is, regardless of the fact that Japanese people might be more selfless than we are or whatnot, this move to make this move to actually make mask wearing compulsory on transport can actually mean different rules for the Transport for London network and mainline trains, right? And from Monday, commuters can actually choose to abandon masks on some trains, but they will be forced to cover up if they switch to Transport for London services. And what's important is that this means that you still have a choice. It's just if you choose to go on the Transport for London services, then you have to wear masks. You have to wear your masks rather. When it comes to you traveling in Transport for London services, you don't have a choice per se, but you do have a choice, because you can choose whether you want to travel in you want to use transport that allows you to wear that doesn't make it necessary for you to wear masks, versus transport that makes it necessary for you to wear masks, right? Because the truth of the matter is, you might be safe, you might be vaccinated, but we still don't know the proper, we still don't know properly, we don't know enough about COVID-19. And so it's important for us to keep taking those steps. It's important for us to keep making sure that we still take those safety precautions, even though we've been asked to not do it anymore, because there is no such legal requirement. But the truth of the matter is, there are so many more variants of COVID-19 back before, in comparison to when COVID-19 first started, right? When COVID-19 first started, there were just about 5 6 variants, but now there's so many different types of variant. And I feel like, in my opinion, I feel like it's more important now for you to wear masks if you're going out, rather than for you to wear masks if you are rather than for you to actually wear masks if you want to or not, right? And I feel like right now, because there is such a need, there is such an urgency for people to make sure that they keep wearing this mask, it just does not make sense to me as to why we have been asked to do it if we want to. I understand that the United Kingdom is a democracy, and I understand that it's always about choice and what you want to do, but it's also important to keep in mind that regardless of what you want to do, you also have to think about other people. We do have a social responsibility to make sure that society is safe for other people, especially people who haven't been vaccinated, right? So make sure to keep that in mind, and make sure to be careful as much as you can when you are going or when you're using public transport. Right now, like I said, city hall had actually said that enforcement officers would patrol the TFL network, and passengers could in fact be turned away from bus stops or stations and ordered to leave trains or buses if they didn't wear masks when they were traveling. And according to some statistics that were available, more than 200,000 people were in fact made to put on a mask before traveling in public transport for the last 12 months. So that we understand, what we understand through this is that, look, we understand that you have to that you do ultimately have a choice of whether you want to wear the mask or not when you're using public transport. But if you're using TFL services, then you need to make sure that you wear that mask. You need to make sure that you are doing the correct thing, and you need to make sure that you put other people, or you put other people before yourself as well in this instance. Now, make sure you stay tuned, because right now we're going to head into a small break. But after that, we're going to keep talking about mask wearing. We're going to keep talking about why it's important to wear masks, and ultimately what it means for you if you continue to wear your mask. So make sure you stay tuned.
The valuations that you place on an asset are always behind you. It's always in hindsight. It's never in front of you. And that's one of the challenges, right? Because you're always valuing what happened yesterday. And what you need is what's going to happen tomorrow. What am I saving or investing for? Why am I doing it? When will I need the money? And how much money do I need? Yeah. So that's quite important, because when you're looking at your net worth, you got to start with saying, well, what do I want my net worth to be, so that there's a goal, and then work backwards. How do I get there? And if I can start with £50 or $50 a week, if I save that every week, and you can go online and use calculators online. I don't have to teach you the maths behind it, but you can say, okay, and if I get a 3% return and I put this away for how long will it take to reach my goal? And that's called just this basic cash flow projection calculations. And it's what we use in financial planning all the time. What we say to clients is we say, okay, what is your goal? What is your objective? Where do you want to go to? And we discuss that in a lot of detail and over most of the meeting. And then the rest of it is saying, okay, in your exact circumstances, with your risk profile, with how you feel about investments and pensions and taxes and where you are and who you work with, and your education level or your lack of education or how involved you want to be. There's a lot of variables that we take into account. And then we say, okay, here's a plan. You start like this, that's great. And then we review it all the time. And we say, okay, we need to increase it, we're on track, we're not, this is what is happening. Because remember, when you're dealing with assets, the valuations that you place on an asset are always behind you. It's always in hindsight. It's never in front of you. And that's one of the challenges, right? Because you're always valuing what happened yesterday, and what you need is what's going to happen tomorrow. So that's a struggle. Yeah. So there are strategies everywhere from £50 a week up to £100 million, and they're different. Right? They range differently from everyone, but and from country to country, to be fair. Different countries have different tax laws, so different vehicles. But from your point of view, at the sort of normal end, I'm not going to call it the low end because I'm in that boat as well. It's as tax efficient as you can get it. That's where you start. You use all the tax efficiencies, and then you step up into different things.
Welcome back to the show. It's your girl Sarah right here on the Sunrise. I'm very, very excited to be here on this beautiful Thursday morning. And I hope you're having a good day. I don't know if you're awake yet, but I am. So I'm here to keep you company all the way until 9 a.m. So make sure you stay tuned because I do have a lot of interesting and fun and also entertaining information to share with you. But right now we're talking about mask wearing. We're talking about why it's important to wear masks and what it means for the future, what it means for society because of these new regulations that have been because of the regulations that have been lifted, and how there is not how there isn't a legal requirement anymore to actually keep wearing masks and whatnot. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. And I'm very excited to be here because, like I said, I do have a lot to share with you. But before we head back into our conversation, rather, I want to very quickly remind you that you can, in fact, go follow us on our socials, which is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And that way you can always make sure you can tune into the conversation from anywhere in the world at any time of the day. So make sure you do that, okay? And also don't forget to go follow us on our socials, which is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Make sure to go follow us on our socials and make sure to download our app, and don't forget to text me, which is text me rather on 078-52473-473, and make sure that you share your thoughts, your opinions, your experiences with me right here on the Sunrise, because that's what I want to hear, right? I want to hear your thoughts and I want to hear your opinions and what you think about what is currently happening right here in the United Kingdom. So going back to Sadiq Khan and how he definitely had different thoughts and opinions about the removal of the mask mandate and whatnot. He actually said that he's not prepared to stand by and put Londoners and even the city's recovery at risk. And I completely agree with him, because there could be a lot of risks that we haven't even thought of, especially when people start removing masks right now. And that is exactly why, after careful consideration, that he has decided to ask the TFL to retain the requirement for passengers to wear face covering on all the TFL services when national regulations change. So it's important for us to actually keep in mind why he's trying to do this, because he wants to make sure that he doesn't put the people of London and even the city at risk, especially in the middle of the pandemic, right? Now, three-quarters of British people are in fact likely to continue wearing face coverings in shops and while using public transport, even when they're no longer compulsory. Now, this was actually found by a poll, and let me know what you think, okay? Let me know whether you will consider wearing masks, whether you want to keep wearing masks even though these regulations aren't in place anymore, and why you feel like you have to wear masks and why you're so skeptical about, not wearing your mask. Now, let me know all of that, because I want to share your thoughts. I want to hear your thoughts and opinions and share it with everyone who's listening in as well, because it's definitely going to help all of us. It's definitely going to help you and me understand what we should actually do, whether we should continue wearing masks, or whether we shouldn't continue wearing masks. Okay, so like I said, three-quarters of British people actually are very, very likely to continue wearing face masks while they're going to the shop or while they're using public transport. And according to a survey that was conducted by Ipsos Mori, 76% actually think that it is likely, or they're very likely, that they will put on a face covering when they're going into shops, even after restrictions have been eased, while 74% rather said the same when it came to taking public transport. So 76% feel like, or they think it is very likely they will wear masks to shops, and 74% think that when it comes to using public transport, they will still continue wearing masks. And even a majority of people actually feel like they're very likely to wear them on planes, which is 64% of people, and even in theaters and cinemas, which is about 60% of people, and even where they work, which is about 59%, and even in pubs and restaurants, which again is about 55%, even when they no longer have to do so. And I think it's good. I think that these numbers are really showing that regardless of the fact that these restrictions have been lifted, even though we have a choice on whether we can wear masks or not, I think it's good that people are still going to take those precautions. People are still going to be skeptical about removing their mask when they're out in public. Look, I want to actually tell you something as well. I love wearing my mask, and I know initially it was very uncomfortable for all of us to wear masks. But the best part about wearing your mask is when you see someone you don't like, or when you find someone annoying, you can say things to them under your breath and they wouldn't even know. And I think that's the best part about wearing masks for me, because in my head, like, I find so many different people annoying, or it's just me. It's actually nothing wrong with them. I'm just a very, as a person, I don't really like hanging out with people. I know this is very contradictory to what I've said before, because I've told that I'm a very social person. I love hanging out with people, but again, that's only at certain times, right? I like hanging out with people, but also at the same time I like being alone. So it's a bit of both, and sometimes it can be very difficult and complicated to understand as well. But if you don't want to wear masks if you don't want to wear masks because you think you're being forced to do it, well, think of reasons why you should wear a mask for yourself, right? You don't have to smile with people you find annoying. You can pretend like you're smiling, but actually you're not, because you're just going to raise your eyebrows and you're just going to make that smiley face but not actually smile. And we've seen so many TikToks out there as well about why masks are so useful, about especially in this day and age, because you can literally do anything and no one will know, right? So if you don't want to do it for other people, you can do it for yourself, and that is such good advice. Thank you. I must applaud myself on the amazing advice I give you sometimes, right? But to get back into the conversation, to get back into how there is in fact a large prevalence of people who still want to keep wearing their masks. According to YouGov data, just about 38% of British people said that they wear masks in public. Now, it's important to remember that when the pandemic initially began, we British people, were in fact very hesitant and skeptical about wearing masks, and we didn't wear masks as much as people from other countries did. And I will tell you this because I have a bunch of statistics that I found last night, and I was thinking to myself, it's crazy how much we didn't wear masks in comparison to all the other countries that were wearing masks. So, like I said, according to YouGov data, just about 38% of British people actually said that they wear masks in public places. And in comparison, about 88% people in Spain and 83% in Italy said that they always wear masks whenever they're going to public places. And in Singapore, that's 90%, whereas in China, it's in fact 82%. So there's so many people out there who are wearing masks. That was in fact a high rates of people wearing masks when the pandemic initially began. And we here in Britain actually had 38% of people wearing masks whenever they went out to public places. So why exactly didn't people wear masks? Why were people so hesitant to wear masks? I think that's a very important question we need to look back on. We need to think about as well, because if we are to understand as to why people are so ready to just throw away that mask, that they're so ready to get rid of that mask, we definitely need to look back in time to see why we in fact were so hesitant to start wearing masks in the first place. Right now, one of the main reasons as to why people didn't wear masks was actually because a lot of us were in fact very unclear about the government stance, right? Because they were constantly changing what they were saying. First they would say, oh, you don't have to wear a mask, and then suddenly a few days later they would say, look, you have to wear a mask. So their stance was in fact, there was a lack of clarity in their stance, right? And because of that, people were confused. And this is why communication is important, especially if you're a ruling body, especially, if you are the government, then you do have a duty to make sure that the message you put out to community, to to the citizens in the country, that the message you put out to the community is in fact as clear as possible. Because the moment you say things vaguely, or the moment you don't say things properly, the public loses their trust in you. And it's important for you to make sure that when you're communicating, that communication is in fact very clear, right? So going back into this conversation, people were in fact very unclear about the government stance. They didn't understand if the government wanted them to wear masks or whether the government didn't want them to wear masks. So there was a huge lack of clarity, if I may, with regard to that. And in addition to that, most of our leaders actually don't even practice what they preach, because how many instances did we see where citizens were asked to wear a mask, but then we had our leaders going out without their mask, without taking any of the necessary COVID-19 precautions, right? So obviously when you're a leader, you kind of do have you have a duty to lead by example, and that is basically practicing whatever it is that you preach. So you need to make sure, if you're trying to get all the citizens in the country to do something, that you yourself do it, that you practice what you preach, to make sure that everyone does whatever is compulsory for them. And like I said, this lack of clarity that was there from the top levels of the government and from the top has in fact contributed to a sense of utter confusion, right? Because we are having so many questions, because it's always questions like, are masks helpful? And if they're helpful, is it helpful for the person who wears it, or for the people who's around that person who's wearing it, or is it both, or are they just useless? And could they in fact be worse than useless, because they make us touch our faces and give us a false sense of security? And we had obviously so many questions like this. And the fact of the matter is, because of that lack of clarity, because of the confusion that we were going through, there was in fact a huge hesitancy in terms of wearing masks, in terms of wearing face coverings, and making sure we did what we had to do, in comparison to all the countries that were wearing face masks, right? And there was also this whole other reasoning, and there was this whole other reason as well, where scientists didn't actually reckon that the country would be willing to comply with the lockdown order. And they thought that it was, especially in a democracy like the United Kingdom, asking people to wear masks is something that would not be acceptable, because it's a democracy, right? You can't force people to do things. But the truth of the matter is, the truth of the matter is, in some instances, regardless, in some instances, especially if you're a democracy or even a dictatorship, in some instances there are certain steps that you need to take. In some instances you can't really dwell on choice, you can't really dwell on whether it would affect the democracy and whatnot, because those instances are emergency situations. And what I'm talking about is an instance like the pandemic. You really don't have time to be thinking about whether it's democratic, whether it would affect democracy. And I understand democracy is a huge part of the United Kingdom. That's what I hope, that's what we are about. But it's also important that in some instances, especially if it causes harm to everyone else, we need to take certain steps, right? But it's only for a certain time period, and I don't understand why it has to be something that is made such a fuss about, right? Now scientists, especially early on, were very unconvinced about the efficacy of mask wearing. They weren't sure if it was going to work, and they weren't sure if it was going to actually be helpful and whatnot. And like I said, there was this whole lack of public trust as well, because of the lack of clarity that came on from the government, and because they were constantly changing their advice and saying, there's no evidence, and all of a sudden you say there's evidence, then that sort of erodes the public trust. But the truth of the matter is, it's okay to make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, but the way you address that mistake, the way you say you've done something wrong, is what needs to change, right? Because if you come out at like the World Health Organization, and you put your hands up and say, look, the evidence has changed, we were wrong, and now we're saying this, then the public says, okay, you're being transparent. Okay, that's good, because now I know what to do. I know that you've been wrong, and it's okay. We're all allowed to make mistakes. Now we'll change accordingly. And this is something that wasn't there in the United Kingdom, especially because of all the confusion, from the government, from scientists, and how people were skeptical about the efficacy of mask wearing and whatnot. And there was, in fact, a lot of confusion. So that has also contributed to such low rates of people wearing masks, right? Now, make sure you stay tuned, because we still have a bit more left to talk about in this conversation. But right now, we're going to head into a small break. And after that, we will be back to keep talking about whether we should wear masks or not. Welcome back to the show. It's a girl Sarah right here on Relax Radio. Now you're tuned into the sunrise, and it's almost the final few minutes of the first hour. And like I said, time passes by so fast. Okay, sometimes I don't even feel the time passing by. Sometimes I'm just doing my work and I check the time, and it's like, evening, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, how did time pass by so fast, right? Because it's crazy. But we're talking about wearing masks. We're talking about how lockdown is going to be lifted on the 19th of July, and these new regulations that we have to follow because lockdown is going to be lifted. Right now, you're tuned in Relax Radio, and if you really like some of the content we talk about, if you really like some of the things that we're talking about, make sure to go follow us on our socials, which is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. That way you can always stay updated and informed about everything that happens, not just here in the United Kingdom, but all around the world as well. So make sure you do that. And also, don't forget to download our app, which is available on both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. That means you can listen in from either your iOS device or even your Android device from anywhere in the world at any time of the day. And I don't think it can get any better than that. So don't forget to download our app, okay? And also, don't forget to text me on 07852473473 because I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your opinions, and I want to know what you want to share with me. I want to know what you think about this, and I want to know whether you think our government is doing the right thing, okay? Because I want you to share your opinions with us because it's important. That's what Relax Radio is all about. So make sure you stay tuned, because right now we're going to head back into the conversation we were having about wearing masks, about whether we need to wear masks and what it means in terms of choice, and everything that is currently happening, all the changes that we're currently undergoing. Right now, Sadiq Khan actually said that he had spoken to a wide range of individuals and businesses and found that most were in favor of the move to continue making face coverings a condition of carriage. And he also said that or rather, over the last 2 or 3 weeks, they've not only just spoken to the staff through the trade unions and not just individuals across the country and not just businesses, but they've also done some polling, and the vast majority of Londoners, which is more than two-thirds, actually want face masks to continue to be compulsory. Now, this was what Mr. Khan said, and it's important that a lot of people. I mean, it's important, and it obviously makes a lot of sense that he's, having a poll and he's asking people what exactly they want to do, right? Because at the end of the day, he is trying to protect, and he's trying to protect and make sure that both the people in London and the city of London is safe, and that the risk they have to go through is in fact reduced, right? So why exactly should we continue wearing masks? Why is it so important for us to keep wearing masks? Now, the first thing that came to my mind when I was thinking about this was obviously the moment we stop wearing masks, the moment we remove our masks, what will happen is it will in fact inevitably lead to a surge in COVID cases among the unvaccinated. Okay, because sometimes even though you've gotten the vaccine, you can still get sick, and you can get sick and not show any symptoms, right? However, the truth is, just because you get sick, I mean, when you get sick, it doesn't put you at much risk as someone who is unvaccinated, right? Because you already have the necessary tools in your body to protect you or to fight against COVID-19, right? However, for unvaccinated people, that's very different because they don't have all the mechanisms that you do. So even when you go out and you take off your mask and you do contract COVID somehow or the other, if it get transferred to a person who's unvaccinated, it's going to be much worse for them because they are unvaccinated, right? And that means all the effects of COVID-19, all the symptoms, it's in fact going to be much worse for them because they haven't been vaccinated, and you've put them at risk. So like I said, it will inevitably lead to a surge rather in COVID cases among the unvaccinated. And we don't need to talk again about how the NHS had to deal with an influx of COVID-19 patients when the pandemic initially began and when COVID was really bad right here in the United Kingdom, right? And the fact of the matter is, sure, these unvaccinated people, they might be younger and they might be less likely to develop severe symptoms from the virus. But what we need to keep in mind, or what is important, is that they're not completely immune to its effects, right? These people, or whoever it is, they're not completely immune to it, and we don't really know how badly it would affect people. So we need to always make sure that we keep that in mind when we're removing our mask, and we need to be responsible as much as possible. Because look, in my opinion as well, I would very much be happy if I didn't have to wear the mask. And I know right now you're not forced to wear the mask, it's a choice. But the truth of the matter is, we're still living in the pandemic, and there is good evidence that masks are, in fact, an effective way of reducing the spread of the virus. And forget about COVID 19, masks are, in fact, even a good way of, or rather, are is a good way to make sure that other viruses, other flus don't spread as well. And even if we were to get past COVID, I mean, when we do get past COVID, rather, it's important for us to keep in mind that the moment we get sick, it's okay to wear a mask. It doesn't mean that something's wrong with you. It just means that you care about other people. But I know, there's a lot of stigma attached to wearing masks. There is a lot of, discrimination out there as well, because there are a lot of anti-mask, anti-vax people who believe this whole thing is a huge conspiracy, and that this is just the government's way of trying to control us, right? But that's just their opinion. But it doesn't, you're free to do what you want. It is, after all, a democracy, so you can wear your mask if you want to. Now, vaccinations have certainly reduced, has weakened, rather, the link between infection and hospitalization, but it has not completely broken it, right? That risk still exists. People still do get admitted to hospital, and it doesn't mean that the virus has completely disappeared. Now, we know that vaccines are safe and effective, but it's not 100% effective. And with large amounts of adult populations across the globe that are yet to be vaccinated, it actually seems quite folly to me to open up travel, bars, and nightclubs while simultaneously removing the mandate to wear masks. Okay, because in my head, what I feel, my perspective, my opinion on this is, something is definitely going to go wrong. Something might go wrong, and then in that case, we would have a much higher risk. We would have to end up having a much higher risk and everything. So because of that, it is in fact putting yourself at risk. And so I don't understand how we're simultaneously, removing the mask mandate, but also opening up nightclubs, we're opening clubs and whatnot, without any restriction on the amount of people that can be inside the club at a specific time. And another thing that we obviously worry about is how there's going to be a lot of abuse, in fact, hurled at people who choose to wear masks, who continue to wear masks, and who are vehemently opposed to them. For example, if you take, you know I guess I don't even have to give you an example, because you understand that there is always a bunch of people who will vehemently oppose one thing, right? And if I, continue to wear my mask, if I continue to, or I choose to keep wearing my mask, what kind of discrimination, what kind of abuse would I face from all those people who are against mask wearing? What I don't understand is they themselves come and talk about, oh, you know what, it's my body, it's my choice, I can wear a mask if I want to, you can't force me and whatnot. But the moment they see someone else wearing a mask, then like they get triggered and like, oh, why are you wearing a mask? You don't have to wear a mask. And they start throwing a lot of abuse, and they make you feel very threatened. So I don't understand, if you can be without wearing a mask, then why are you so bothered about me wearing my mask? Why does it matter to you? At the end of the day, it is a democracy, so we can all do what we want, right? Now, what we need to remember, what we need to keep in mind, is that we all have had to make sacrifices over the last 18 months to protect the most vulnerable people in society. And a lot of other people may, in fact, feel like they've done enough and that they need a holiday and that they should go out and have fun. And that they've probably given up so much that it outweighs the benefits of everything, right? But the truth of the matter is, look, it's okay for you to go out and have fun. It's okay for you to do anything you want, but just make sure that you're safe. Make sure you take the necessary precautions, and make sure that you stick to those necessary precautions and you don't put everyone else at risk as well. That's important to keep in mind. Make sure you act responsibly as well. Just because all these restrictions are being removed, just because there's no more mask mandate, that doesn't mean that you get to act irresponsibly, right? That means you still have to be responsible. You still need to make sure and keep in mind that the virus still exists. COVID-19 still exists, right? Even though things are slowly getting back to normal, it still exists. So make sure you take the necessary precautions that you need and make sure you are safe and also your family. Now, make sure you stay tuned because I will be back in a few minutes to keep talking to you about the gut instinct, okay? Which is basically how what we eat affects the way we think as well. And I know that's an interesting conversation, so make sure you stay tuned.